Excuse me?
Are you guys okay with working out that system and taking a look at what all the regulations are?
The people who are involved in it can make that decision. Did you want to go first? Or
yeah.
I just wanted to put something, let me just say this quickly. I want to put this on the record since we have both media here, that RIRA had never made a demand. You were right. There was never a demand. RIRA can't make demands of RIOC.
That was
anyway,
regarding that got my attention too.
Regarding
right.
the funding or regarding the money that was given to RIRA. It was an agreement between an official here and the RIRA president. There would, it was an offer. It was never a demand. It was an offer made to RIRA.
Oh, you're talking about a specific event?
Yeah, there were some discussions about how to,
I just want to,
whatever.
I want to put that on the record for both media.
Excuse me, you're on pre-record, sure. This meeting being recorded for the public.
And there
you go.
Thank you.
Dave.
First of all, thank you. I apologize for being a little late for this. As I understand it, the consensus that has emerged is that RIOC will basically, RIRA will basically perform the function that it has performed in the past, and of course consistent with what we've stated in the resolution as well. There will be somewhat of a learning curve as to the new law, and as I did last year, I'm certainly willing to work with Sean, if you'll help me, and whomever else, in ensuring that I'm up to speed on exactly what and how we implement the transparency measures. Because in the process itself, for example, we have competing organizations for these funds. So there are some cases where, in my view, it would be difficult to allow a board member from organization A to attend meetings from organization B if they're competing. But we can work on that, and if you say I'm wrong on that, then we can fix that. That's no problem.
Identify the speaker for the record.
That's Dave Evans speaking from RIRA.
And your position in RIRA in terms of how this process...
As the chair of Public Purpose Funds Committee.
Yes. So obviously we wish to continue as to the extent that we can, much like we have before, and we're willing to obviously make the adjustments that would be necessary. And once again, I would avail myself to help carry that message forward to RIRA. We're going to report on what has happened here tonight, and I think it'll be a good report because I didn't hear you say get out of the room.
No, would I ever?
Give it time.
I might, but not tonight.
We're certainly anxious to work out the modalities so that we can get as early a start as we can on the process. And as before, we trust we'll have good representation on the committee from the island. And we have strong policies in place that deal with issues like conflict of interest, etc. We're not going to have anyone on, certainly not knowingly, who would have a conflict of interest, and what recommendations we might develop that comes forward for your review, your oversight, and your final decision.
Is your committee made up only of your elected members, or do you have other people on the committee?
We historically, historically, from my perspective, and I've been doing this now for a little over 4 years. Served as a committee member and then served as chair for a couple years. We primarily choose from elected members. That means the active Common Council members. That has been the process. Now, I must admit that our Constitution does have some provisions that could be arguable, but I think the prevailing provision is that ad hoc committees, and that's what this committee is. Public Purpose Fund Committee, or RIRA, is an ad hoc committee, and that committee is formed with the consent of the members of the Common Council who vote.
Okay.
I don't think anybody has ever challenged your process, David.
No.
And I think the result of your process was pretty positive, as you mentioned.
Aaron, did you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to correct.
Aaron Hamburger, Chair of Island Services.
I'd like to correct something that Dave said. Not that Dave.
This Dave.
this business about attacking RIOC, board, RIOC, staff, etc. That is not, and never has, come from RIRA. It's come, frankly, I can say this, we all know, from primarily two people who at the time happened to be members of the Common Council, but were in no way speaking or representing us. That kind of stuff is continuing. If you see the last couple of emails that this one individual has put out. So he's not on the Common Council anymore, but it continues with these outrageous, in our view, emails. You know, so we don't want to be identified with any of that.
Aaron, in the public's view, not to argue with you at all, I understand your point and I accept it. I would only point out that the blog, the management of the blog allows it to stay open to the opinions and views of anybody, pretty much, near as I can tell. And that's his policy. And it's not our place to criticize the policies of any medium. Be that as it may, I believe it is possible for the public to confuse the views of certain members,
Right?
Yep.
with the overall views of RIRA. And I guess that's you've acknowledged my point. I don't know what the conclusion is. I know that
There doesn't have to be a conclusion.
Well, I know you've gone out of your way sometimes in the past to make clear the distinction, but I'm not sure the public has
I agree.
understood that distinction.
Okay, anybody else, any comments?
Question.
All right, so oh, sorry, yeah.
Question. You had indicated, or I think Charlene indicated earlier, that the criteria for the approval of the recommendations was that RIRA would have like a 20%.
No. That the community, what Sean was saying when he was explaining it, when we were going to do it, the grading would have a 20%, and that would be community. It's 100% when you rate it, right? So 20% would be made up of community input.
So under this revised policy,
Well, we would have to look at it again, because that was, there was no written policy as yet. We were discussing ways of doing it. And that was one of the things that we thought of. That's all.
so this 20% criteria may not be applicable under this new system.
I don't know.
You don't know that.
No, but one thing that I do want to add is that we wanted to make this as transparent as possible and allow the community to provide as much input as possible to the process. So that's something that we'll definitely consider when we reevaluate the process in its entirety.
Okay. I think the important thing we have now is that we're back to getting RIRA back in the process. You guys have to work out the details, and I'm confident you will. But be aware that we want to approve this at the December board meeting if we can. We don't want to hold anything up. So the sooner rather than later.
What will we be approving at the December
The
board
procedure.
meeting? The total procedure?
Total procedure.
Are you confident between now and whenever we have to publish our final agenda for the meeting that you're going to make progress in that area?
I am confident that we will try as hard as possible.
And I think it's possible because a lot of stuff remains the same. The first taking a look, making sure that 501c3, none of that changes. It's really just the RIRA input piece. So I think one good meeting and you guys will have it covered.
David and Sherry and Aaron, are you confident that you're fairly representing the views of the Residents Association as you participate in this deliberative process?
We are representing, and I don't see anything at the end of the day here, as I've heard it, that is onerous to or contrary to what we've asked. We basically asked to be able to continue. There are some modalities that have to be worked out. Sometimes the devil's in the weeds, so to speak, in the details. But I'm personally not displeased with what I'm hearing. I mean, the dialogue was good, I think.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. The proviso is that we will set up what the guidelines that we think are necessary, and then I mean, it's not, it
Sure.
would not be, because we
No point in
have,
meeting until
yeah.
we have them. They have to agree to them.
Right.
Well,
So we've
also,
got- yeah.
also, it is these are changes in an ongoing process, and the changes themselves will be ongoing. And after, this year's gonna be a little experimental. At the end of this season's contributions, we can see fit to make changes, or you can see fit to need changes. We'll see how it goes from here. This is a process.
So I just want to make sure I understand, ma'am.
Sure.
Just want to make sure I understand, and probably everybody else does, and I'm just want to. The 20% is RIRA. It's weighted that RIRA and RIRA
That was
equals
before we had
No.
RIRA in the middle.
Aaron, let
We
me-
don't know
out.
yet, we
Oh,
don't
that
even
is-
know it's out,
Well,
we
it's
have.
20%, we got a whole different ballgame. We need to know that now.
We can't tell you what we're going, the guidelines we're gonna have, because this is a change, it's an immediate change, and so.
What I
So my question, well, let me finish my question, if that's in. The 20% is RIRA, which equals the community plus the community, whoever comes to these meetings, is that?
Sherry, I'm
just trying to
stating that we
understand.
we don't know, this is a
Okay.
change that it's happening on a discussion with the board, so now we have to go back, look at it, and decide what we're doing.
Okay, I was just trying to understand who was representing
Initially.
the
And-
20%.
What the
Initially-
20% was initially, was 20% was initially, was when we initially started, the idea was to have RIOC take over from RIRA, which we've gone back on now, right?
Okay.
If RIOC was doing it under the proposal, and Sean
Yeah.
can speak this better, he did most of it, but my understanding is that under that proposal, there was different categories that the weighting system would be done under. Applicants would come forward, they'd be rated on, their mission and purpose, their ability to get other funding, their benefits to the island, those type of things. And within that scale of 100, 20% would also be input from the community. So that's the 20%. However,
That 20%
that 20% would be for,
But-
no, that was if RIOC was doing
Right.
the
Oh, okay,
process.
Right,
all right,
but you guys are
okay,
out,
okay.
and now
Doing
you
the
guys are
process,
doing
so
the
it's no
evaluation,
longer-
you'll be
it's no
doing.
longer
Okay, so
relevant.
that's, okay,
That
all right,
system's not
that's
workable anymore.
Okay.
I think what we're saying here is you guys would look at that same criteria that's laid out and weight it the same way, and then
Exactly.
come to us with recommendations, so it's a whole different ballgame now, that's all.